what's your relationship to altcoins, and what has been your involvement in altcoins? So an introduction and a little bit about your relationship with altcoins.
So, my name is Matej. I'm founder of the DexQ. My connection to the altcoins is like the first thing that I met, where I met with cryptocurrencies, was the mining of Litecoin. From that point, I was interested in it. Every day I was looking on the internet for new altcoins and looking for the profitability for mining. And that's about all, I think.
I'm Vitalek, Buterin.
Is it working?
No.
Should we try that? Try that.
I'm Vitalek Buterin. I've been involved in the Bitcoin space for about 3 years now. The project I'm currently working on full time right now is the Etherum project, which I briefly talked about yesterday. Basically, blockchain with a built-in programming language to sort of generalize the functionality of a lot of the smart contracting platforms.
So would you refer to Ethereum as an altcoin?
So first of all, I actually like to make a distinction between altcoins and 2.0s. So altcoins I see as being like forms of Bitcoin UTs, so Litecoin, Bitcoin, Blackcoin, and Dogecoin all fall into that. And the second point is that Ethereum is a network and it contains Ether, which is a coin. So kind of like the distinction between Ripple and XRP, which I think is important. It's an important point to make because in a lot of these cases, the coin is necessary because you have to like regulate transaction fees, you have to pay miners and so forth. But it's quite often the least interesting part.
So the focus in that instance not on the coin, but on the network.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm Stanislav. I'm Vice President Product Development at Yacuna. We operate the Bitcoin exchange from London. And but now we offer Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin for Euro, British Pound. And one of my jobs is also to take a look at different altcoins, look which coins we should add to our portfolio, our exchange, and also what opportunities altcoins have for us as an exchange.
My name is Marc. I run a UK-based company called Bittylicious. It's, in a nutshell, a place to buy bitcoins. It's kind of a marketplace, kind of an exchange, sort of a hybrid thing. To begin with, it just did bitcoins. It was launched in May last year, and in December I got contacted by the guys from Feathercoin, kind of like what they're doing, implemented that as the first altcoin, almost as a test. And really, it's been increasing altcoins as I've found interesting ones that have been easy to implement. And really, that's where it's been going. That's my introduction to altcoins.
Hi all, my name is Matej Michalko. I'm founder of BitcoinMarketing, crypto events and DexQ. BitcoinMarketing is a first full-service crypto digital agency in the world. Crypto Events is the company that is organizing this event and many other events that you can find on our website. DexQ is a project that I'm going to present during the startup show. It's an integrated trading platform for cryptocurrencies that also comes with a wallet. And in this wallet, we would integrate several altcoins. Concerning my relationship to altcoins, I started to mine Litecoin at the time when ASIC miners came for Bitcoin for SHA-256, and I used my GPUs that I used before to mine Bitcoin, so I just switched to Litecoin. So this is what is concerning my introduction to altcoins. Thank you.
So, I mean, it's interesting to get some perspective here. In the case of both Matej, it came from mining. Altcoins became fascinating from the mining point of view. And for Marc, it's a retail point of view with respect to altcoins, like adding another service that you can provide. And then I think what would be interesting, from these different perspectives, to talk maybe about what favorite altcoin is. for you guys. And you know, I mean, Vitalek, you mentioned that there's a distinction between altcoins and 2.0 projects, but maybe there's a bit of a grey area between the two. I don't know, like Namecoin, would you consider that one or the other?
Yeah, might actually be one of the first 2.0s.
Okay. So maybe you guys can give us a view on what your favorite altcoin is.
May I interrupt a little bit? I think there's no distinction between the 2.0 and altcoins, because at the end we have always a token, we have always a database, we have always a consensus mechanism that should bring together all different states of the database to one. And then we have some functions that you can use with the token. Yeah? And it's the same with altcoins and also 2.0s. And then all the other things is basically marketing, how you call it.
I'm not entirely sure I'd agree on that one. I would personally consider an altcoin something that's derived from the Bitcoin source code. And generally I find them to be incremental improvements or changes at least. Something like Etherum is quite different, it's pretty revolutionary. And I think lumping it, well, there are some good altcoins out there, but lumping it in with the normal altcoin just doesn't quite seem fair. Then in between, I think you've got maybe Bitcoin 1.5 with things like counterparty and things like that.
So for you, Marc, what's a good altcoin? Talk to us about Featherpoint. That was your first altcoin integration.
Yeah, I mean, Featherpoint, they were doing some interesting technical things regarding the what's called the gravity wells to do with retargeting difficulty. But really, I liked it because they were trying to foster a community. It's that they had quite a few pubs on board and cycle shops and that kind of stuff. And I really like acceptance of cryptocurrencies. And I think that's really what Bitcoins needs to aspire a bit more. And really, they were perfect test beds. You know, they're really helpful from just kind of testing the platform out perspective. So that's why they were chosen really as the first ones, and it just grew from there.
I actually think that does sort of help highlight what I see as the distinction between the two. Like, for example, in our case, we don't really care if, we get mom and pop's grocery store and people also accepting Ether as payment, because that's not the point. Whereas with something like Featherpoint, the whole point is that you're trying to promote basically a community currency.
Yeah, you're indeed right. And you mentioned Namecoin right now. And I think I would actually say that's my favourite altcoin because it's not really designed to be a currency at all. It's designed to be something totally different. Something that wasn't really planned in anything to do with Bitcoin. It's a really different way of thinking about things. So I think that's why I like that.
Okay. And for Matej, from you guys, when you looked at it from a mining perspective, which was your favourite and why? I mean, obviously there's an economic incentive in it. Can you talk us through some of the altcoins that you would, or at the top of your list? You mentioned Litecoin.
Well, at first when I found out about cryptocurrencies, I was thinking about, I bought the hardware for it, and that's what I believe that they're like. Litecoin was the first currency that was saying that it's ASIC proof, so from point of mining it was interesting because you could mine it on the personal computers. So for me it's Litecoin because it was the third meeting and it's like a nostalgic thing. And then it's really difficult now in mining because all the prices are really down, so the mining is losing the money. It's not profitable anymore, but I still believe it can come up. So that's why I don't sell my Litecoins, I always keep them and I store the value.
Okay. So how do you feel about the fact that a quarter of the Litecoin hash power is now being produced out of one ASIC factory in Shenzhen?
Scary.
Yeah. It's scary. I don't know what to add to that.
Okay, if I can just add, I probably share the opinion of Matej as well. I was a Bitcoin miner, and when ASICs came, I was mining with GPUs. I needed to switch to Litecoin, and I was able to mine a nice number of Litecoins, but unfortunately I didn't sell them when the value was high. And I kept them.
So are we saying in a way that altcoins are created because equipment becomes obsolete. You know, if my GPU has no power in Bitcoin, and I flip over to Litecoin just to save that bit of hardware investment. So is one leading to the other? I.e., difficulty in one network produces an idea to create another altcoin, which then, you know, justifies that piece of equipment and delays the obsolescence of that equipment.
Exactly. There is a site called coinmarketcap.com. You can see the most popular, most famous cryptocurrencies. I think the top, of course, is Bitcoin, and after there are several altcoins. I think there are 100 to 150. So it's coin 500, I think. Okay, 2 months ago. It's the last time I checked it out. So since Litecoin was created as ASIC proof currency, which I think it was 2011, right? Summer 2011, right? 2011 by Charlie Lee. This is how it was marketed. It was said that Bitcoin is analogy to gold, and Litecoin is an analogy to silver. So and later on, Feathercoin, I heard that's an analogy to bronze or copper, right? So these were the 3 most popular altcoins in the last year when the Bitcoin Expo in London happened. But back to the initial thing I wanted to say. There are people creating new altcoins. Many people creating new altcoins basically to only make profit, to market the coin and get some user base, and later on sell it for a higher price, sell it for Bitcoin or whatever other cryptocurrency that has solid user base. But there are also altcoins that are solving some problems the other altcoins have. For instance, there is a phenomenon of merge mining, where you can get it's actually what I explained yesterday at the merge mining workshop. It is that you can get other altcoin when mining one altcoin free of charge. So you are basically mining 2 currencies at the same time and using the hash power of only one, and inserting the hashes into 2 blockchains. So, for instance, you can mine Bitcoins and get free transaction coins, or mine Dogecoins and get free transaction coins.
But then, I mean, is there any inherent value in transaction coin apart from the fact that you can merge mine? I mean, is there any other utility behind it apart from adding more value to your hardware?
First of all, the most important thing is that you can get it free of charge. The other question is whether whether you can use it, and it of course depends on the user base. But transaction coin was designed as a green coin, as a coin that can be used to pay your mining bills, to buy your mining equipment, and to pay the electricity bills.
Okay, I mean, this is interesting. I want to just pick up on what you were saying, Matej, which is, you know, the rationale behind creating an altcoin, which is, you know, effectively, yeah, I'm going to market this scheme and get loads of people on it, and then I'm going to get rid of all my altcoins. And that, you know, this, I mean, it sounds like a Ponzi, some would say a scam, but that's one of the phenomena that's kind of haunted the altcoin sphere. Do you think that, what impact do you think that has on altcoins?
Because of scammers, many people are afraid to invest into altcoins. I think, as Vitalek said, 25% of the hash power of Litecoin is mined by one big mining farm in Shenzhen, China. And those people usually keep the Litecoins they mine. So they use it as a store of value. They are hoping for the exchange rate to rise, and they hope to make some profit on this.
Just to pick up on this, because I mean, I know this just from reading a little bit of crypto coin news. You know, they usually do, anytime a new altcoin comes out, they do an audit of the coin to see if it's scam proof. I mean, first of all, I think that means there's an inherent distrust of altcoins, that that people take it upon themselves now to conduct an audit. Well, they're not really auditors, they're journalists. Let's be honest about that. They're not auditors or in a position that they have access to information to determine whether or not something is a scam or not. Because a lot of these coins, you don't know who's behind it necessarily. So, can I just talk about how we can overcome this kind of scamification of altcoins?
Well, first of all, one point is that it doesn't really matter who produced a given protocol or coin in a lot of cases. Like the way auditing should be done is that you should look at the code, check through every line of code, make sure that, first of all, make sure the algorithms are sound, make sure the algorithms are being properly implemented, and make sure there aren't any kind of like hidden features. Like one story I believe I heard at one point is that in 42 coin instead of coin that only had 42 units of it, the guy pre-mined 0.42 of them for himself. He never told anyone. He never denied it, or rather, he never told anyone. He never denied it. No one ever thought that such a thing could happen. And so so that's like just one example of this surprise that Unity only not.
But who is able to do that? Like, and the average Joe on the street.
Yeah, it's not an average Joe. It's basically a security firm that would take the equivalent of about $20,000 worth of effort on each coin to do it.
Which is not really viable, because some of that represents the market cap of a lot of altcoins.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that first of all, look, so if you as a developer of an altcoin want yours to be trustworthy, what you'd want to do is you'd want to take the code of one that's already been audited and change as little as possible, and then people can just check the GitHub diff.
So on that note, let's just explore that notion a little bit more. Is there room for certification of altcoins? Any opinions on that?
I found your point interesting that the person that developed it shouldn't matter, and I don't think I entirely agree with that either. Give an example of Dogecoin, and I'm going to call it Doge, not Dogecoin. It was actually kind of dying, and the merge mining of Litecoin was obviously a decision the team made. So these are devs and team members that actually have a real interest in it. It's not just being left to run itself. I think that's one example where actually the team does matter. And you can certify code, you can make sure it's all good, but you can't really certify a team. That's very much it's very subjective, certainly. But I think it's extremely important in the altcoin world.
So there's two separate points there. The first point is the coin a scam or not? And the second point is, does the coin have long-term sustainability potential? And I think in terms of long-term potential, it's basically entirely dependent on the community and on both the core team and on the people that are sort of not so core but are involved in some fashion. In terms of, is everything done up until now correct? That was basically what I'm referring to.
Well, an interesting point, I mean, maybe we haven't emphasized it here, is, if you have a protocol, there is an element of trust involved. Especially if you're talking about altcoins that are backed by assets. If I say to you, okay, I've got a great idea, it's Adam Vazari coin, and it's backed by platinum, half is platinum and half is gold, and you can come and redeem it against me, come to my house, I've got gold and silver for you. Trust is a big thing in that instance, and so I was wondering whether, as these kind of asset-backed mechanisms start to evolve, especially now that you've got counterparty Ethereum, where you can create basically tokens that represent real world assets, that trust is going to be a big thing. And how do we get over that barrier?
Well, you're involving the real world, so you just need to employ real world. Well, how would you trust anyone, really? Just think about, is it a real entity? Can you visit this person? Maybe visit them before. I think you can't just rely on the maths of cryptography when you're involving assets like this.
Yeah, I mean, another strange phenomenon which is really inherent to this industry is the fact that it's so totally unregulated. I mean, if I was issuing electronic money, I would be a licensed entity. But in this instance, I can just create an altcoin, and you know, people can buy it, and I can say it's backed by marshmallows, and it may be.
Actually, that's something that probably might be interesting to actually see or to actually ask lawyers about, because there is major latency difference, which will probably end up being reflected in a lot of even existing legislation between just issuing some random token backed by nothing and then hoping the market values it, versus issuing something with an explicit promise that it represents something.
And from a mining perspective, I mean, for miners, when they look at altcoins, you know, they want to extend the obsolescence of their hardware, which they used up on Bitcoin. But is there any other reason why they would mine an altcoin apart from an economic one?
Well, when the ASICs came for the script and script N, that happened now, all the miners are looking on the coins that have some price and they are profitable. That's what happened now lately. Like when I started mining, there were 4 algorithms, and now there are, I can't even count them. There's, I think it's more than 10 for sure. X11, X12, X13, X15, and the miners are looking for, like the personal miners that I'm talking about, that have the machine at home and they want to mine some coins and they go to work, not the professionals. And they are looking for the coins that, I don't know if some algorithm is ASIC proof well, but that's what our miners looking for.
So it's always an economic factor. It's not like I'm mining cannabis coin because I love cannabis.
I think there are certainly some factors like that.
I think there has to be something other than this economic factor. Like, the reason is that generally, like the way the whole sort of chain of incentives is supposed to work is that there exists a coin, people value that coin for that purpose. Because that coin is valuable, miners come in and value it. Or miners come in and mine it to make a profit.
I'm pretty sure people doing prime coin, for instance, aren't making any money.
Prime coin is separate because there's people who think that that particular kind of mining is scientifically useful, which it is only to a very, very, very tiny extent. But
so you think there's altruism?
No. So just to finish the economic argument here. So the problem with all these altcoins is that this theory that we've been raising is basically that instead you have the miners come in first, and then basically the miners end up creating a community which gives the coin intrinsic value in order to justify their own profits. So it's somebody ends up valuing the coin for some reason. There has to be some sort of change from this coin is worth 0 to this coin is worth something, and just the existence of hash power by itself isn't it. Because if you care about hash power, there's this other coin that has more hash power. So it's there certainly is, I think, some kind of other purpose to these alts. Could just be a pure gambling vehicle. Could be trying to actually set up communities around them.
I mean, because the reason I mention that is because the security, and I'm not a technical expert, the security of an altcoin is always in question. But I wonder, that's only ever in question because we always have this, fear of a 51% attack. But if there are other incentives behind mining that may be more community or asset focused or altruistic, then this 51% attack may become more relative and you get some perspective on it.
I mean, I think things like that do exist, but I could argue that altruism doesn't scale. So there is certainly interest in it, certainly from the beginning. I think, you can't guarantee that people will always be really just fond of a coin. I think having the economic side of things is still a necessary aspect, really.
Okay, well that's altcoins in the context of mining. What do we think of altcoins in the context of proof of stake?
So first of all, I think the interesting thing with proof of stake is it actually does let smaller coins be substantially more secure, because with proof of work, you know, if you're doing a fork of Litecoin, then you know a bunch of Litecoin mining pools can just come in, you know, swoop in quickly, screw around with your coin for a few hours, and then leave. And all you're left with is just, you know, value dropping way down. Hopefully you've shorted it at 10x longer than Bitfinex, but so with proof of stake, on the other hand, the only way to take over a coin is to actually like buy up at least like 20 or 30% of them, and that by itself, you know, is going to shoot the price up considerably. So proof of stake might actually be in some sense the right approach for one of these sort of small community coins to take, because it creates this sort of group of people that are going to keep on participating in the consensus process. And there's no need to pay to subsidize consensus if you don't have to.
It's a little bit classist, though, isn't it? The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. With
And are you saying that ASIC mining doesn't work like that?
Yeah, exactly, it does. I mean, all these altcoins, they're just not just, but they are an experimental playground. These are, we don't know how these things are going to work. Proof of stake, proof of X. They might not work, they might work. It's a good way to find out, certainly. This is a really great economic experiment.
Are you selling any proof of stake coins?
Isn't Peercoin a bit proof of stake?
Yeah, it's hybrid.
Yeah, it's hybrid, yeah. So Peercoin's one example, yes.
But with Peercoin's interesting, because is it that they started with mining and then they bought proof of stake?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that correct?
They intended to be hybrid from the start, I believe. So from the start, they created a path that would switch from pure proof of work to proof of stake over time.
Is there any way that you could do it in a reverse, because it makes more sense? I.e., you're probably more vulnerable to attack in the beginning on proof of work. Why not? Can you do proof of stake then proof of work?
Sure. I mean, it's just a matter of changing the knobs around.
This is Adam's point. Make it.
Yeah.
Don't think anyone's done it yet, but I think it's a good idea.
I mean, the one thing I really want to figure out if it's possible is a coin which is normally proof of stake, but then there's some mechanism where if an attack is in progress, then you can sort of temporarily turn on proof of work to max.
Wow, okay. So, I mean, on the point about that you distinguish between altcoins and 2.0s, how would you feel if people were doing kind of like using your coin, say like Ethereum, for more, buying stuff in the shops? Is there any effect or negative effect, like people using Ripple, just the token as a store of value?
Yeah, I mean, there are people who speculate on XRP. I think private internet access takes XRP as payment, but it's fine. I mean, it doesn't really change all that much.
But do you need stability, price stability to some extent? Are you looking for that when you're 2.0?
I think that base level crypto tokens are not going to have price stability. Like, the fact is that these are big. What we're talking about are things that could go up in factor by potentially a factor of 1 million. And when you have a coin where a large portion of its value is predicated on the probability that it's going to be 1 million times bigger, that by itself is just going to be unstable no matter how you do it. News from regulators, the chance it'll go big goes up by 3x. Bad news from regulators goes down by 3x. Like, if we want stable tokens, then either we go with this sort of approach based on either backing those dollars or gold, or a financial derivative based equivalent, because you can do that. You can eliminate a lot of trust requirement that way. Or I think you might want to create an altcoin with the explicit purpose of having a more complicated monetary policy that adjusts based on difficulty in some fashion. So if the coin sees itself going rapidly up by 100x, then it should increase its issuance and so forth.
Like a kind of like a DAO, that's the central bank, that adjusts its monetary policy depending on demand.
Basically, yeah.
Wow, we're definitely in another world. What about, say, like Ecuador or the Philippines that are going to create their own altcoins? Would you call that an altcoin?
Well, definition of altcoin is just not Bitcoin, really. Yes. I mean, if you're going to something as big as a country currency, you're going to have to think about stability. And thinking about stability, you're probably talking about a fork of Bitcoin D, and in which case you're talking, yes, it's an altcoin. Localized coins are a really tricky thing to actually keep local. Certainly, I mean, the blockchain is always public, and I don't think you can do anything about that. It's an interesting concept. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that successful, to be honest.
There was a good example on this Aurora coin that said that they're gonna be the currency for Iceland, and it was one of the biggest bumps and downs of the coin in the history of crypto. So I remember that it hit the price about I think $100, and in a few days it crashed back to like $2.
There's nowhere to spend it.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
When they spread it to the public, it had actually no price anymore. So.
Their website didn't change since March at all. I just look at it this morning and it looks the same. They're right there. They're looking for developers and marketing people. I have not heard about Aurora Coin since May of this year. So.
It is a real shame that it didn't. It is a great idea, I think. It hasn't been done before. It's a shame it didn't work, and they've just really messed it up. And you know, I actually put it onto Bittylicious as well, and it was really popular. And of course, a lot of people lost money. It's since gone, and for obvious reasons, it's dead. But it was a good attempt, and this is the experimental playground that the altcoins live in. So I'm glad they did it, and I think others will learn lessons from it.
And I mean, just on that point that it's more experimental, you know, as you were saying earlier, it's almost done in increments. It's like Bitcoin has some limitations, we create an altcoin that's a little bit better, and then that has some limitations, we create one that's a little bit better, and just keep on going. Are we going to get to a point that eventually we end up with a killer app altcoin?
I think Bitcoin's good enough. You know, when something's so revolutionary. And you know, this other thing comes on that's revolutionary plus 0.1. No one cares about it. Bitcoin's is right at the beginning. People haven't heard of that. These altcoins are, they're certainly not going to win the marketing battle compared to Bitcoins. At least at this stage, we're talking short-term number of years. I mean, we can give lots of examples about things that are better. Say JPEG compression, for instance. There's been JPEG 2000, which is quite a lot better. 14 years old now. No one uses it because JPEG's good enough. I think Bitcoin's good enough for now.
So we're just talking about a medium of exchange. Essentially, Bitcoin does that function pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you could argue the 10-minute thing is a bit of a problem. There are possible ways around with green addresses and all that. When you're making the next jump, say to possibly a colored coin, but certainly Ethereum type things, then yes, there could be some very interesting things going on. I mean, that's longer term, but Bitcoin certainly does solve the currency medium exchange, all that kind of money problem right now.
Okay, I mean, that's an interesting point. So as a medium of exchange, really, altcoins are never really going to beat Bitcoin at that game. But another, I look at some of the coins, and you just mentioned cannabis coin and stuff like that. I mean, I'm joking about it, and obviously there's some regulatory issues around redeeming your coins for weed. But there are some interesting trade applications which may, I see, prove fruitful in the future. Like, for example, a gentleman I know is behind a coin that is backed by fertilizer, effectively, and the fertilizer is used to trade. So rather than going through a letter of credit system, you can actually redeem the currency against the asset. So, I mean, that's an innovative approach to altcoins. What are your views on other use cases for altcoins?
There are a lot that we haven't discussed yet. I think Namecoin is a perfect example of an alternate use case that has nothing to do with the money. I don't know, try it. If you can think of it, then I think you've got to experiment to see how far you get, because that does give it something totally unique. And it's certainly in the top few of the 500 altcoins out there, that many of them are exactly the same.
All right, well, I will take some questions from the audience. Any questions?
Can you say a few words about side chains and what's the development over there? Like, the concept of sidechains, right? So can you say a few words about that? Is there anything interesting happening there?
So,
will they happen?
First of all, sidechains is two separate concepts that really should be considered on their own. One thing is, one component is merge mining with Bitcoin. You should merge mine with Bitcoin if and only if number one, you believe that proof of work is the future, and number two, you are not concerned with say Bitcoin miners colluding to not mine your fork anymore, which, you know, if the Bitcoin mining space becomes heavily regulated, might happen, or even if they just don't like it. So that's fine. The second component is, if you're making your own new system, do you make your coin two-way pegs to Bitcoin? I mean, I'm not too much a fan of that approach, primarily because I think if you control your own currency, then you can create as much of it as you need. You can use that to subsidize whatever behaviors inside of the system you want. It's just it leads to fewer fragility concerns. And all of the concerns about, oh my god, there's going to be 40,000 coins, can I keep track of them all? Don't think that's going to be too much of an issue because, you know, we have software, we have multi-currency wallets and all that. But it probably will be a very valuable, a very good approach to take if you're the sort of project that's too small to maintain its own coin, and if they figure out how to make it easy to actually create a platform. So it's worth watching.
Anyone else? Go for it.
What's your take in general on the anonymous coin market, like Dark Coin, Monero, and Anon Coin and so on? Is there traction going on? Or?
Dark Coin's popular on Bittylicious. I only add coins that have some interesting aspect to it. Usually technical. Say in the case of a raw coin, I like the idea of what they were doing. So yeah, I mean, Dark Coin has lots of positives and negatives depending on whether your personal feelings you think are particularly important, or whether you're going to do lovely stuff with it. It's technically interesting, and I like it because of that. So, and it is popular. That's my personal take.
One anonymous coin we also should really be watching out for is Zero Cash. It's the one that uses this generalized zero knowledge proofs to provide basically perfect anonymity. So it's going to take a while to come out because the crypto is, well, it has only been around for literally 1 year, but it's worth following.
Nicholas points out that there's weaknesses in Bitcoin's cryptography. What if either Bitcoin or another important altcoin, as it is seen, what if one of those coins becomes threatened by such weaknesses and they are exploited? What would that do to the altcoin scene, to the Bitcoin scene? Just wondering what our views are on this.
Okay. So I actually wrote an article about a year and a half ago on Bitcoin Magazine talking about how Bitcoin would deal with quantum cryptography. And the reason why it's relevant here is because the algorithm that Nicola often criticizes is Bitcoin's choice of SCP-256K1 the elliptic curve. Yeah. So, and quantum computers are probably the thing that will make SCP-256K1 broken, if anything at all, at least in my view. So basically, if we want to just challenge ourselves, take that extreme case, what's going to happen is, first of all, if you have Bitcoins in an address and you have not spent from that address yet, then for the immediate term you're fine, because Bitcoin addresses are actually protected both by public key cryptography and by hashes. Now, if you have Bitcoins in an address that you've spent from, then someone will be able to take your signature and take your public key from a previous transaction, extract your private key from that, and then you're going to be screwed. Now, after that, the question is that if we assume that all of the coins inside of addresses that have been spent from are all in the hands of criminals, and everything else, how do we transition from that to a more secure system? And the more secure system would probably be based on something like Lamport signatures. Like there's a trick known as hash ladders that was invented by Carl Gluck a couple of years ago that lets you basically make a signature scheme that relies on nothing but hashes for security, and it's got the signatures down to about 400 bytes. So with that, the question is, how do you take your coins in one address and sort of move them over to the new scheme?
So it would be like transfusing the blockchain from one
basically,
side.
Like there is an approach that you can take, which is you would start a new chain, and then the way that you would move your points over is that first of all you would make a signature privately, you would submit the hash of the signature, and then 2 hours later you would submit the real signature. So then from the real signature, obviously everyone's going to figure out what your private key is, but then the hash of your signature is already back in the blockchain in about 2 hours, so they can't they can't change the transaction to be something else. And then once everyone's on board the new system's going to keep on going. Unfortunately, signatures are going to be 8 times longer, but oh well.
Yeah, that's just something you have to take for security.
Yeah.
Or you could just do a DexQ and then just roll it back a few transactions and change everything. It's certainly an interesting tactic way of doing
The
it.
question is though, who is going to and who will break elliptic curves? Because if it happens publicly, then of course everything's going to happen publicly. It's obvious where it happens, and you can revert before that point. But if some more secretive organization does it, then they're probably they're just going to want like 10,000 coins at a time. Put them out on exchanges, watch the price crash to about 0, and then it's going to be too late anyway. So it's a bit of a more dangerous case.
Bitcoin Armageddon. Any other questions?
The miner guy said that there was a big incentive to move to other algorithms because of ASIC proof and resistance. But I want to ask if you really believe ASIC proof exists, if it is possible, because an ASIC is basically just logic in hardware.
In Ethereum, we're actually probably the furthest along project in trying to actually develop an ASIC resistant algorithm. But the basic answer is that there are always going to be gains from specialization, right? You can always take a CPU and whatever algorithm you have, there's going to be at least one component you're not using. You can kick that component out and you've made an ASIC, which is like a CPU, but at least a few cents cheaper. So the question is not whether specialization is possible. The question is how high the specialization gain is. And the gain what you want it to be lower than is that if you look at people mining on their own ordinary computers, then first what you realize is that the marginal cost of mining on your own computer is just the cost of electricity. You already have the hardware. For professional ASIC farms, you have to pay for hardware and electricity. So the question is, all normal users do get that little special gain, the gain of the hardware. Electricity cost over hardware cost gain, hardware over electricity. So the question is the gain from specialization greater than or less than that threshold? If it's less than you win. If it's more than you lose, basically.
Yeah.
And
if I can just add, agree with Vitalek about this. If you take the example of Intel, they are coming with new chip architecture every 1 to 2 years. So it's, I think it's now 20 nanometers, I believe. But the technology and the mining hardware is getting faster and faster. And also the price of electricity is getting more expensive. So it's very difficult to predict whether there would be something. Whether it would be not profitable to develop ASICs for a given algorithm, let's say the most ASIC-proof algorithm.
And what kind of special features and properties does a certain algorithm need to be resistant?
The way that our ASIC approach to an ASIC-proof algorithm works is basically that first of all, when you're mining, you're taking a function of the hash of the block header that you're mining and the nonce, and you're trying to see if some function of that is less than some threshold, right? It's sort of the standard proof of work problem. So in our case, what we do is for the nonce, the general way mining works in Bitcoin is that you keep on trying different nonces until something works. So the way our function works is take the nonce, now take that nonce divided by 1,000. Based on that value, you would basically generate a random circuit. So you would generate a random set of operations. Start them as memory input starts off here. You would have some plus times to divide a big long chain of those. You would have an output at the end, and from that output, you would hash that to get your final answer. So every 1,000 nonces, you would generate any one of those circuits, and then you would evaluate that circuit on 1,000 different inputs. So. And if one of those inputs with one of those circuits provides a valid answer, then you win. So the idea behind that is basically that because you're generating random functions from basically the set of all functions that could conceivably exist, what you have is a mining algorithm which pretty much sort of is a superset of SHA-256 and SHA-3 and X11 and pretty much any function people could come up with. So the theory is that you cannot come up with specialized hardware for it because it already is a generalized task.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So that's ASIC proof. Are you aiming for GPU proof as well?
So that's a question I'm sort of thinking about in my internally, and we're thinking about a lot. The thing is, making something that can, between CPUs and ASICs, there's just a lot of room for specialization, and chances are we are gonna end up missing a bunch of things. So CPU is really, really nice to have. It's ideal, but on the other hand, if we sort of give up on CPU and we optimize for GPU instead, that actually makes the problem substantially easier because GPUs are already optimized for a specific set of tasks that we can target.
Why do you think CPU is the gold standard then? Because you do have the difficult issues of botnets and things like that, more so with CPUs.
Well, the thing with botnets is I've answered the question a few times. People do ask about it a lot. The general gist is that computers on botnets, so botnets are generally scary right now basically because the kinds of tasks that botnets do is botnets try and DDoS websites and try different passwords and so forth. And in those cases, on the internet, pretty much every computer is equal, right? One computer is one computer. But when you're talking about mining, first of all, when you have a computer on a botnet, chances are it's from 10 years ago, it's running Windows XP. Also, chances are you can't have its computing power up more than like say 10 or 20% of the CPU because otherwise the user of the antivirus is going to notice. So there are a lot of those different ways in which it's sort of stacked against botnets. But yeah, I mean, if you want to remove both ASIC farms and botnets entirely, your only choice is basically root a stake.
I think yeah, small last question. So how important is it for any coin to be centralization proof? So if you look at Bitcoin, you have a lot of really big mining companies right now setting up. How dangerous is that for a coin?
Well, so when I wrote my blog post on mining a few months ago, the sort of quote I had at the top is decentralization definition. The security assumption that a mining pool run by a 19-year-old in Hangzhou and some unknown guy who may or may not be in the UK have not yet decided to collude with each other. That's basically what Bitcoin is relying on right now. You know, the largest mining pool, it's managed by a 19-year-old in Hangzhou, and ghash.io is God knows where. So it basically, centralized systems work as long as the guy in the center is nice and stop working when the guy in the center stops being nice. So it's basically a sort of complete ticking time bomb that's really just going to keep on working until Black Swan comes.
So this is a security issue, and coins should look into ways of decentralizing it as much as possible.
Completely.
Okay.
I think just the last thing to wrap up. Matej, you said you're developing a wallet, is that correct, that accommodates other altcoins?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I think it's an important point to bear in mind. If we look, like, fast forward 10 years in the future, someone's going to have a wallet. You're not going to have a Litecoin wallet and another wallet to have some other kind of coin. You're going to want a multi-purpose wallet, and it's hyper user-friendly. So I arrive in a shop, I want to buy coffee. There's about 20 different coins to pay for the coffee, and I choose the coin that I want to use depending on the price that day. That's the vision I have of the future in an altcoin as well. But how difficult is it to actually execute on that and deliver when systems, different algorithms, etc., and so many different systems out there? How can you bring that into one place?
If you have a generic system, wallet, then it's and given that most of the altcoins are only copies of other altcoins, whether it is called Litecoin or Dogecoin or whatsoever, it's not very difficult to add other altcoins. So if there is a company, say as BitPay, they say they accept only Bitcoins. But there is this GoCoin that came up with Litecoin and Dogecoin as well. But it depends on their business strategy. what target groups are they focusing on?
But are you finding it challenging the development of your multi-purpose wallet that is, or are you sticking with the same algorithm?
I didn't find the number of altcoins that challenging actually in the wallet. It was not the most challenging.
Recently, we had this site come up, shapeshift.io, which basically allows you to pay any merchant that accepts Bitcoin and shifts that into another altcoin. Do you think gateways like that can make in the future really let consumers just pick the coin they want and then pay everyone else?
What would be really nice is when Shapeshift creates a plugin and BitPay and Coinbase integrate that plugin. So then you can use BitPay and Coinbase directly to pay any merchant with any currency. That would be interesting.
Okay.
Alright guys. Yeah, I think we're done. That was Altcoins. Thank you.